I inherited an old Bible, but what I found in the book of Revelation shocked me. Michael Johnson held the old Bible with trembling hands, still unable to believe his beloved grandmother Margaret was gone forever. The will had been read just 2 hours earlier, and among the few possessions she left behind, that sacred book was the only one that truly mattered to him. When he opened the yellowed pages looking for the book of Revelation, which he so often heard his grandmother recite on Sunday afternoons, his eyes widened. There, tucked between pages 1247 and 1248, was an old, faded photograph of a little girl he had never seen before. The child couldn't have been more than 3 years old, wearing a simple white dress and smiling shyly at the camera. "Who is this girl?" he murmured to himself, flipping the photo over. On the back, in the shaky handwriting he knew so well, it read, "My dear granddaughter, forgive me for everything. Grandma Margaret, 1978. Michael's heart raced. Granddaughter? What granddaughter? He was an only child and his parents were only children too. At least that's what he had always believed. This discovery shook everything he thought he knew about his family. Unable to contain his anxiety, Michael grabbed his phone and called his Aunt Faith, his mother's older sister, and the only living person who might solve this mystery. At 82, she lived alone in a modest house in Jamaica Plain, New York City. "Auntie, I need to talk to you urgently. Can I come over now?" "Of course, my boy. But what's the rush? Did something happen?" "I found a strange photo in Grandma's Bible. A little girl I don't recognize." On the other end of the line, Michael heard an unusually long silence. When Aunt Faith finally spoke again, her voice sounded different, weaker. "Come quickly, Michael. Come now." The drive to his aunt's house had never felt so long. Michael navigated his blue Civic through the busy streets of New York City, but his mind was entirely fixed on that photo. Who was this girl? Why did Grandma call her granddaughter? And why was she asking for forgiveness? When he arrived at Aunt Faith's house, he found her sitting on the porch, nervously fidgeting with a rosary between her fingers. She hugged him tighter than usual, as if sensing this conversation would change everything. "Sit here beside me, my boy," she said, pointing to the rocking chair next to hers. "Before you show me that photo, tell me, did your mother ever mention having a sister?" Michael felt the world spin around him. His mother, Grace, had passed away 15 years ago, taking with her any secrets she might have kept. A sister? What sister, Auntie? Mom was an only child, just like me. Aunt Faith closed her eyes and sighed deeply. "No, my boy, she wasn't. Your mother had a younger sister. But that was a long time ago, when she was just 17. What do you mean? Where is this sister? Show me the photo first, Michael. I need to be sure." With trembling hands, Michael pulled the photograph from his pocket and handed it to his aunt. What he saw next he would never forget. Aunt Faith turned completely pale, as if she'd seen a ghost, and began to cry silently. "It's her," she whispered. "It's Rosie." Dear listener, if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers a lot. Now continuing. Rosie? Who's Rosie, Auntie? Your aunt, my boy. The aunt you never knew. The daughter your grandmother Margaret forced your mother to give away when she was just a girl. The revelation hit Michael like a bolt of lightning. His legs went weak, and he had to steady himself on the chair to keep from falling. Give away? Give her to whom? Why? Aunt Faith wiped her tears with the sleeve of her floral blouse and took a deep breath before continuing. It was as if he was preparing to open a wound he had tried to keep closed for decades. "Michael, you need to understand how things were back then. It was 1975. Your mother Grace was only 17 and expecting a baby. She wasn't married, and her boyfriend disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy. Your grandmother Margaret almost went crazy with shame. But that doesn't justify giving away a child. I know, son, I know. But your grandmother was obsessed with what people would say. She forced your mother to hide the pregnancy, made her stay locked in the house for months. When the baby was born, your grandmother had already arranged everything with a family from Boston who couldn't have children." Michael felt anger rising in his chest. How could the grandmother he loved so much have done something like that? And my mother. What did she do? Your mother cried for months, Michael. She cried and wasted away. She wanted to keep the baby, but your grandmother wouldn't let her. She said a single mother couldn't raise a daughter, that it would ruin the girl's life. And then? Did they ever hear about the child again? Aunt Faith hesitated before answering. It was obvious there were more secrets to tell. Your grandmother. Your grandmother never completely lost contact. She had the address of the family who adopted little Rosie. Every now and then she'd send letters, ask how the girl was doing. And my mother knew about this. No, your grandmother hid everything. She felt guilty, Michael. Very guilty. Especially after you were born and she saw what a wonderful mother your mum was. She realized she'd made a terrible mistake. Michael stood up from the chair and began pacing back and forth on the small porch. His mind was racing. He had an aunt he'd never met, an aunt who probably didn't even know he existed. Auntie, do you know where this Rosie is now? I don't, son. It's been decades since anyone talked about it. But I remember the last time your grandmother mentioned it, she was still living in Boston, where she was raised. I have to find her. Michael, think carefully about what you're doing. She might not even want to know about the family, or she might be angry with all of us. It doesn't matter, Auntie. She has the right to know she has a family, and I have the right to meet my aunt. Aunt Faith gripped Michael's hand tightly. If you're really going to do this, there's one more thing you need to know. Your cousin Richard, your Aunt Gloria's son, he was your grandmother's lawyer. He knows all about this. Richard? Why has he never told me anything? Because he's afraid, Michael. Afraid this whole story will come out and complicate the inheritance. You know your grandmother left that house in Westchester, right? Richard is the executor. He's afraid another heir might show up. Michael felt a mix of sadness and anger. So the cousin he'd always considered a brother was hiding his aunt's existence because of money. I'm going to talk to him today. Be careful, son. Richard isn't the boy you used to play with as kids anymore. He's become an ambitious, unscrupulous man. He'll try to convince you to drop this. Michael kissed his aunt's forehead and said goodbye. He had a lot to think about and a lot to do. First, he needed to confront his cousin Richard. Then he had to find a way to locate his Aunt Rosie. On the way back home, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the photo. That smiling girl would be about 48 now. Was she married? Did she have children? Did she still live in Boston? When he got home, he picked up the phone and called his cousin Richard. Richard, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Hey, cuz. What's the rush? Still shaken by Grandma's passing? It's not just that. I found a photo in Grandma's Bible, a photo of a girl I don't know. The silence on the other end of the line was telling. Michael continued, I already spoke with Aunt Faith. She told me everything about Rosie. Michael, let's meet in person to talk. This isn't a conversation for the phone. Come to my house then now. An hour later, Richard was in Michael's living room. Tall, thin, always well-dressed, he tried to keep his composure, but it was obvious he was nervous. Cousin, I know you found out about the daughter Aunt Grace gave up for adoption, but you have to understand this was a long time ago. There's no point stirring up a hornet's nest now. Hornet's nest? Richard, we're talking about my aunt, our grandmother's daughter. She has the right to know she has a family. Michael, you don't understand the legal complications of this. If this woman shows up now, she'll want part of the inheritance. The house in Westchester, Grandma's savings, everything will have to be split. So what? If she's entitled to it, she's entitled. Richard stood up and began pacing the room. It's not just that, cousin. Grandma Margaret made me promise I'd never tell this story to anyone. She died carrying this secret because she wanted it that way. But she left the photo in the Bible. She wanted someone to find it. No, Michael. She probably forgot the photo was there. Grandma was 87. Sometimes she forgot things. Michael shook his head, irritated. I don't believe that, Richard. And even if it were true, it doesn't change anything. I'm going to find my aunt. Don't do it, cousin. For everyone's sake, don't. You can't stop me. Yes, I can. As the executor, I can file a motion to prevent you from sharing information that could jeopardize the inheritance. Are you threatening me? I'm protecting you, Michael. Protecting you and protecting our grandmother's memory. After Richard left, Michael felt even more determined. His cousin's reaction only confirmed there were many more secrets to uncover. He decided he would go to Boston the next day, with or without the family's approval. That night, Michael barely slept. He kept flipping through his grandmother's Bible, searching for more clues. That's when he noticed other pages seemed to have been disturbed. In the book of Genesis, he found a letter folded into 4 parts. It was written in the same shaky handwriting as his grandmother's. "My dear Rosie, if you ever read this, know that not a day has gone by that I haven't thought of you. I ask for forgiveness for separating you from your mother. I ask for forgiveness for tearing a family apart. You have a nephew named Michael. He's a good boy, just like you were. Your mother Grace passed away without ever seeing you again, but she always loved you. Always. Grandma Margaret." Michael felt his eyes fill with tears. His grandmother truly regretted what she had done, and more importantly, she wanted him to know about Aunt Rosie. The next morning, Michael got in his car and drove to Boston. He had no address, no phone number, nothing but a name and an old photo. But he was determined to find his aunt. He started at the city's registry offices, searching for marriage or birth records. Then he went to schools, churches, and health clinics. He asked older employees if they knew a Rose or Rosie who might have been adopted in the 1970s. It was at a downtown health clinic that he got his first lead. A retired nurse working as a volunteer remembered a Rose Johnson who used to bring her children there for checkups. She was very quiet, always polite, but she hasn't come here in about 10 years. I heard she opened a bakery in the industrial district. Michael's heart raced. A bakery in the industrial district, that was a solid lead. When he reached the neighborhood, it wasn't hard to find the bakery. Rose's Bakery Wines read the simple sign on the storefront. Michael parked his car across the street and watched the activity inside. It was a small bakery, but it seemed busy. He was gathering the courage to go in when he saw a woman around 48 years old coming out from behind the counter. She had her brown hair tied up in a bun, wore a white apron, and had a kind smile for all the customers. Michael took out the old photo and compared it to the woman. There was no doubt it was her, it was his Aunt Rosie. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. With shaky legs, Michael crossed the street and entered the bakery. The smell of fresh bread and coffee enveloped him, but he could barely focus on anything except the woman behind the counter. "Good afternoon, can I help you?" Her voice was sweet, warm. Michael stood there for a few seconds, unable to speak. I'd like to talk to you. About family." Rose tilted her head, intrigued. "Family? Are you related to someone I know?" "My name is Michael Johnson. I'm your nephew." Rose stopped breathing for a moment. Her hands began to tremble. "Excuse me? You're Rose Johnson, daughter of Grace Johnson, right? Born in 1975 and raised by an adoptive family here in Boston." Rose's face turned pale. She leaned on the counter to keep from falling. "Who are you? How do you know this?" "I'm Grace's son. Your mother was my mother. I mean, your birth mother." "My birth mother? You're lying." "I'm not lying. I have proof." Michael pulled the photo from his pocket and placed it on the counter. Rose looked at the image, and her tears began to fall. "Where did you get this?" "It was in our grandmother's Bible. She passed last week and left me the Bible as an inheritance. I found your photo in the book of Revelation." "Our grandmother? You're saying my birth grandmother just passed away?" "Margaret Johnson, she passed last Sunday. She left this photo so someone would find it. There was a letter too. Rose asked an employee to take over the bakery and led Michael to a small back room. There she sat in a chair and began to cry uncontrollably. "I've searched for you all my life," she said between sobs. "Ever since I turned 18, I tried to find my birth family, but every time I looked, they told me you didn't want contact with me." "Who told you that?" "The clerks at the records office, at the courthouse. Always the same story. That my birth family had made it clear they didn't want to be found." Michael felt a surge of anger. Someone had lied to his aunt all these years. Rose, that's not true. My mother, your mother, died without knowing you were looking for her. Our grandmother deeply regretted forcing my mother to give you up. She kept your photo in the Bible for decades. Then why did no one ever come looking for me? Because no one in the family knew you existed. Only our grandmother, my mother, and my cousin Richard. And they all kept it from me. Rose wiped her tears with her hands. Your mother, what was she like? She was the sweetest woman in the world. She worked as a seamstress, loved to cook, had a beautiful garden full of flowers. She would have loved you so much, Rose. I'm sure of it. And when did she pass? 15 years ago, cancer. She suffered a lot but never complained. Always said God knew all things. Rose cried even harder. I'll never get to meet my mother. But you can meet your family. You have an aunt, Faith. She's alive and 82. When I told her about you, she cried from emotion. She knows about me. She knew from the beginning. She always thought our grandmother made a terrible mistake forcing my mother to give you up. Rose was silent for a few minutes, processing everything. Michael, you have to understand something. For all these years, I held on to so much anger toward my biological family. I thought you had abandoned me because you didn't want me. But now you know that wasn't the case. I do, but it still hurts. It hurts so much. I lost the chance to know my mother. I lost the chance to grow up with a brother. I lost 48 years of family. But there's still time to start over. Rose shook her head. I don't know if I can, Michael. I don't know if I'm ready for this. At least let me tell you how I found out. Let me show you the letter our grandmother wrote to you. Michael told her the whole story, from the moment he found the photo to his conversation with Aunt Faith and the confrontation with their cousin Richard. He also showed her their grandmother's letter. Rose read it over and over, crying. She really regretted it, didn't she? Deeply. Aunt Faith told me our grandmother was never the same after she forced my mother to give you up. She lived with guilt. And this cousin Richard, why didn't he want you to find me? Because of the inheritance. He's afraid you'll claim your share. What inheritance? Our grandmother left a house in Westchester and some savings. It's not much, but Richard wants it all for himself. Rose laughed bitterly. After 48 years, he thinks I care about money. Michael, all I ever wanted was a family, that's all. And you have one. You have me. You have Aunt Faith. You have cousins. But I also have a cousin who doesn't want me around. Forget about him. What matters is that I found you, and I'm never letting you go again. Rose looked at Michael fondly. You're just like your mother, aren't you? Aunt Faith told me she was just as stubborn when she wanted something. Our mother, Michael corrected. She was our mother. The two talked for over 3 hours. Rose shared how she had been raised by a kind elderly couple who passed away when she was 25. She told him about her marriage, her 2 daughters, and her divorce 5 years ago. She admitted she had always felt a void in her heart, as if something were missing. Now I know what it was, she said. It was you. It was my family. When night fell, Michael left with a promise to return the next day. He wanted to introduce Rose to Aunt Faith and show her the city where she was born. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think our mother would forgive me for being angry at her all these years? I'm sure she would, Rose. She had a pure heart. She would understand your pain. On the drive back to New York City, Michael felt fulfilled. He had found his aunt, shattered decades of secrets and lies, but he knew another battle lay ahead, convincing Rose to embrace their family and facing Richard's opposition. When he got home, there was a message from his cousin on his phone. Michael, I heard you went to Boston. I hope you didn't do anything stupid. Can we talk tomorrow? Michael deleted the message without replying. He would talk to Richard, but not the way his cousin expected. The next morning, Michael woke early to pick up Aunt Faith. He had called her the night before to share the news about finding Rose. She had cried so much she could barely speak. Michael, I can't believe you found her. After all this time. I did, Auntie. And she wants to meet you. Oh, Lord. I don't even know what to say to her. Tell her the truth. Tell her you always knew about her and always believed she should have stayed with the family. On the drive to Boston, Aunt Faith was visibly nervous, fussing with her hair, adjusting her clothes, whispering prayers. Michael, what if she doesn't like me? She will, Auntie. Rose is sweet, just like our mother was. Just like our Grace was, Auntie corrected, and just like you are too, my son. When they arrived at Rose's bakery, Rose was waiting. She had closed early and was dressed in nice clothes, not her work apron. The meeting between Aunt Faith and Rose was emotional. The two embraced and cried for long minutes. Aunt Faith held Rose's face in her hands, as if she couldn't believe it was real. My child, you look just like your mother when she was young, exactly the same. You knew my mother? Of course I did. Grace was my youngest sister. I was there when you were born. How was she when I was born? Madly in love with you. She didn't want to give you up. She fought with our mother until the last minute. Rose cried even harder. So she wanted me? She wanted you more than anything in the world, so much so that she was never the same after you left home. Aunt Faith told many stories about Rose's mother. She talked about how she was in her youth, how she took care of the house, how she adored children. She also told how she changed after Rose was given up for adoption. Your mother took years to smile again. When your brother Michael was born, she clung to him as if he were the last thing she had in the world. Brother, Rose murmured, I have a brother. Yes, you do. And he loves you even without knowing you, just like I love you. The three spent the rest of the afternoon together. Aunt Faith showed other old photos she had brought from home. Rose saw her mother as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. She saw how much they truly resembled each other. Aunt Faith, can I ask you something? Of course, my child. Why did you never try to find me? Aunt Faith sighed. Because I was afraid of making things worse. Your grandmother Margaret made me swear I would never tell anyone about you. She said it would be better that way. Better for who? Better for her, because she couldn't handle the guilt. And now? Now that she's gone, can I meet the rest of the family? Of course you can. You're our family, Rose. You always were. When they returned to New York City, Rose went with them. She wanted to see the city where she was born, the house where her mother had lived, the place where she was buried. Michael took her first to the cemetery. Grace Johnson's grave was simple but well kept. Michael always brought fresh flowers. Rose stood in front of the headstone for a long time, crying silently. Aunt Faith prayed softly beside her. Mom, I know you can't hear me, but I want you to know I don't hold any grudges. I understand you were very young and Grandma didn't give you a choice. I just wish we could have met, that's all. After the cemetery, Michael took Rose to see the neighborhood where he grew up. He showed her the house where he lived with their parents, the school he attended, the little church where they were baptized. Michael, did you have a happy childhood? Very happy. Our parents were wonderful. They gave me all the love in the world. And you never felt like something was missing? Never. Only now, after finding out I have a sister, do I realize how incomplete my life was. That night, Rose slept at Aunt Faith's house. The two talked late into the night, making up for 48 years of separation. The next day, Michael was surprised by an unexpected visit. Richard showed up at his house with an older man, whom he introduced as Dr. Matthews, a lawyer specializing in estate matters. Michael, we need to talk about the inheritance situation. What situation, Richard? The situation of you finding this person and bringing her to New York City. This person's name is Rose, and she's our aunt. Michael, you need to understand the legal implications of what you're doing, Dr. Matthews intervened. If this woman files a claim for inheritance rights, it could complicate everything. Complicate how? She can demand a DNA test to prove the relationship. If it's confirmed that she is the daughter of the late Grace Johnson, she will be entitled to a portion of her grandmother's inheritance. And what's the problem with that? The problem is that you'll have to sell the house in Westchester to split the money. You'll lose the property that's been in the family for decades. Michael looked at the two men with disdain. You think I care about that? You think I'd rather have a house than a family? Michael, you're not thinking straight, said Richard. You barely know this woman. How can you be sure she's really who she claims to be? Because I have eyes, Richard. She looks just like our mother. And more than that, she has all the traits of our family. That's not legal proof. Anyone could pretend to be a distant relative. Then she'll take the DNA test, and when it proves she's our aunt, you'll have to acknowledge her rights. Dr. Matthews stepped forward. Mr. Michael, we'd like to make a proposal. Your cousin Richard is willing to give up part of the inheritance in your favor. You'd get 60% of the assets, he'd get 40%. But on the condition that this woman is excluded from the division. Are you trying to bribe me? It's not a bribe, said Richard. It's a family agreement to protect all of us. Protect yourselves, you mean? Because Rose doesn't need protection from anything. She just wants to know her family. Michael, you don't understand. If this story gets out, it'll tarnish the whole family's reputation. People will find out our aunt had a child out of wedlock and gave her up for adoption. It'll shame our grandmother's memory. The only thing shaming our grandmother's memory is your behavior. She regretted what she did. She wanted Rose to be found. You can't prove that. Yes, I can. She left a letter for Rose in the Bible. Michael showed them his grandmother's letter. Dr. Matthews skimmed it. This has no legal weight. It's not notarized. It doesn't need legal weight, it has moral weight, and that's what matters. The two men exchanged glances. It was clear the conversation wasn't going as they'd hoped. Michael, here's what we'll do, said Richard. You have a week to think about our proposal. After that, we'll take the necessary legal steps to protect the inheritance. What legal steps? We'll file a motion to prevent outsiders from claiming rights to the inheritance. We'll argue this woman is an opportunist taking advantage of your goodwill. You won't get away with that. Oh, we will. We have resources and connections. This woman has nothing. Who do you think will win? After they left, Michael grew worried. He had no doubts about Rose's identity, but he knew proving it legally could be messy, and he didn't want his aunt to endure the humiliation of having to prove who she was. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Michael decided to tell Rose and Aunt Faith everything. They needed to know what was happening. When he arrived at Aunt Faith's house, he found the two women in the kitchen, preparing lunch together. It was a touching scene. Aunt and niece, separated for decades, now sharing a simple family moment. Rose, I need to talk to you about something serious. What happened? Michael told her about Richard and Dr. Matthews' visit, the threats and the bribe offer. They want me to give up any claim to the inheritance in exchange for being left alone. And you're going to accept? Of course not. It's not about the money. It's about justice. Michael, listen, Rose said. I don't want to cause trouble for you. If your aunt's presence is going to complicate your life, I can leave. Don't say that, Rose. You're my family, and no one is going to kick you out of our family. Aunt Faith, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. Michael, I think it's time to put an end to all the secrets. There's one more thing you all need to know. What is it, Aunt? Your grandmother Margaret didn't just know where Rose was. She kept in touch with her. What do you mean? She sent letters to the family that adopted Rose, and after Rose grew up, she kept sending letters directly to her. Rose's eyes widened. I never received any letters from my grandmother. Because someone intercepted them, said Aunt Faith. Someone who didn't want you to meet. Richard, Michael murmured. Exactly. Richard worked at the post office when he was young. He had access to all the family's mail. Your grandmother told me this shortly before she passed. So he knew where Rose was the whole time? He did. And not only did he stop the letters from reaching her, but he also spread the word that you didn't want anything to do with her. Rose began to cry. So my grandmother tried to reach out to me all these years. She did, my dear. She never stopped thinking about you, never stopped regretting what she did. And here I was thinking you all didn't want me. That was never true, Rose. You were always loved by this family. Always. Michael was furious with Richard. Not only had his cousin hidden Rose's existence, but he had actively sabotaged any chance of reconciliation. Aunt, do you have any proof of this? Anything that shows Richard intercepted the letters? I do. Your grandmother kept copies of every letter she sent to Rose. She gave them all to me right before she passed. Aunt Faith went to her room and returned with a shoebox full of papers. It's all here. Letters, postal receipts, even some replies from Rose's adoptive family. Michael and Rose spent hours reading through the material. There were letters from their grandmother talking about the family, the changes in the city, and how much she missed Rose. There were also letters from Rose's adoptive family, sharing updates about her growth, sending photos, and recounting her first words and steps. Michael, look at this, said Rose, showing him a letter. My grandmother sent money for my high school graduation. I never knew. And here, Michael said, picking up another letter. She sent money when you got married. She said she wanted to contribute to her granddaughter's dowry. And here she asks if she can meet my children, Rose sobbed. She wanted to meet her great-granddaughters. Rose, she tried to be part of your life. She truly cared about you. Then why did Richard do this? Why did he tear our family apart? Because he knew if you were found, he'd have to share the inheritance. He planned this for decades. Michael, should we use this evidence to sue him? We will. But first, let's do the DNA test to officially confirm you're our aunt. Then we'll fight for everything that's rightfully ours. In the following days, Michael, Rose, and Aunt Faith prepared for the legal battle. They took the DNA test, which confirmed with 99.9% certainty that Rose was Grace Johnson's daughter. They also hired a family law attorney, Dr. Carter, who reviewed the evidence and was impressed. You have a very strong case. Not only is Rose entitled to the inheritance, but she can also sue Richard for mail tampering and emotional distress. Emotional distress? Absolutely. He caused decades of suffering by keeping you apart. That comes at a cost. I don't want money, said Rose. I just want justice. Sometimes justice comes in the form of money, Dr. Carter replied. Carter, especially when someone acts in bad faith like your cousin did. Meanwhile, Richard wasn't idle. He had hired a private investigation firm to dig up information on Rose, trying to find something he could use against her. That's when he made a mistake. The investigation firm he hired discovered that Rose had separated from her husband 5 years earlier and that she had some debts from the bakery. Richard saw this as an opportunity. He approached Rose directly, showing up at the bakery unannounced. Rose, can I talk to you? Are you Richard? Yes. Michael's cousin. So you're the one who intercepted my grandmother's letters. Look, Rose, I know you're angry with me, but I did what I did for the good of everyone. The good of everyone. You tore my family apart. I tried to protect my family, but now I realize I made a mistake, and I want to make it right. How? I'm willing to give up my share of the inheritance in your favor. You get everything. The house, the money, all of it. Rose looked at him suspiciously. In exchange for what? In exchange for you not suing, and for you not telling anyone about the intercepted letters. Are you trying to buy me off? No. I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been doing this 48 years ago. Rose, you don't understand. If this story gets out, it'll damage the reputation of the whole family, including yours. My reputation? Everyone will know you're the daughter of a single mother, that you were given up for adoption. That could hurt your business, your relationships. You think I'm ashamed of my past? It's not about shame. It's about privacy. You destroyed my privacy a long time ago. Rose sent Richard away without giving an answer. She needed to talk to Michael and Aunt Faith before making any decisions. When she told them about Richard's offer, Michael was furious. He's desperate. He knows he'll lose everything in court. Michael, do you think I should take the deal? No, because it's not just about money, it's about justice. Richard needs to pay for what he did. But he's right about one thing. If this gets out, everyone will know our story. So what? Do you have anything to be ashamed of? No, but I have 2 daughters. I don't want them to be embarrassed. Rose, your daughters will understand, and if they don't, we'll help them understand. You've met my daughters, Michael. They're adults with families of their own. I don't know how they'll react to learning they have a family they never knew. The same way you reacted when you met me. With surprise, but also with joy. Rose decided to refuse Richard's offer. She wanted the whole truth to come out, no matter the consequences. The lawsuit was filed the following week. When Richard was served, he panicked. He tried to negotiate again, but it was too late. During the trial, many things came to light. It was discovered that Richard hadn't just intercepted the grandmother's letters, he had also forged some replies, making her believe Rose didn't want contact with the family. It was also revealed that Richard had manipulated the grandmother's will, convincing her that Rose had no right to the inheritance because she was adopted. Even worse, it came out that Richard had secretly sold some of the grandmother's valuable belongings before she passed, claiming he needed money for her medicine. The trial became a scandal in the family. Relatives who hadn't spoken in decades came together to support Rose and condemn Richard. During a particularly tense hearing, Richard finally broke down. He admitted everything he had done and asked for forgiveness. "I know there's no excuse," he said, crying. "I did it all out of greed. I thought if Rose showed up, I'd lose everything. But I ended up losing so much more. I lost my family, I lost my character, I lost my dignity." "Richard, why did you do this to us?" asked Rose. "Why did you destroy our family?" "Because I'm a weak man, because I put money above love, because I'm a coward." The judge, moved by the situation, tried to mediate an agreement between the parties. Richard would return all the money he had taken improperly, pay compensation for emotional damages, and completely give up his inheritance. In exchange, Rose would not press criminal charges for mail interception. Rose accepted the agreement. She didn't want revenge. She only wanted justice. But the story wasn't over yet. During the proceedings, another secret came to light. Rose's birth mother, Grace, had left a letter for her daughter before passing away, a letter Richard had hidden. The letter read, "My dear daughter, if you're reading this, it means we've finally found each other, or at least someone who loves you has found you. I want you to know that not a single day of my life went by without me thinking of you. I want you to know that the decision to give you up wasn't mine. It was my mother's, your grandmother. She believed she was doing what was best for you. I believed I was doing the wrong thing, but I was too young, too weak to fight her. I want you to know that I love you, that I've always loved you, that you were wanted, that you were cherished. If I could turn back time, I would never have let them separate us. But since I can't change the past, all I can do is ask for your forgiveness and ask you to take care of your brother Michael. He's a good boy, just like you must be. The two of you are the most precious things I have in this world. Your mother, who loves you forever, Grace." When Rose read the letter, she cried as she had never cried before. They were tears of pain, but also of relief. Finally, she knew for certain that her mother had loved her. "Michael, now I can forgive our mother. Now I understand she was a victim too. She was always a victim, Rose, just like you were. And now we can be a real family. We can, and we will be." After the trial, Rose's life changed completely. She inherited the house in Westchester and her grandmother's savings. But more importantly, she gained a family. Michael helped her pay off the bakery's debts and modernize the business. Aunt Faith moved to Boston to be closer to her niece. Rose's daughters, Megan and Patricia, were at first surprised by the discovery of their paternal family, but they quickly adjusted and came to see Michael as their uncle. Rose decided to use part of the inheritance to start a social project, a support center for teenage single mothers. She wanted to prevent other families from going through what hers had endured. The center was set up in the Westchester house, which was renovated to welcome the young mothers. Michael and Aunt Faith became volunteers for the project. Richard, after everything that happened, moved to another city. He lost his job, most of his friends, and his family's trust, but he also lost the greed that had ruled his life for so many years. 2 years later, he showed up at Rose's support center, asking to volunteer. "Rose, I know I have no right to ask for anything, but I'd like to help with your project." "Why?" "Because I need to do something good with my life. I need to make up for at least some of the harm I caused." "And you think working here will make up for 48 years of suffering?" "No, but it could be a start." Rose hesitated. She didn't know if she could ever fully forgive Richard, but she knew forgiveness was important for her own healing. "All right, Richard, you can work here, but as a regular volunteer. No privileges, no special treatment. I understand. And thank you for the opportunity. Richard worked at the center for 3 years. During that time, he helped dozens of young mothers rebuild their lives. He also grew close again to Rose, Michael, and Aunt Faith. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, arguments, setbacks, but slowly, the family began to heal. The most emotional moment was when Rose decided to organize a mass in honor of her mother and grandmother. She wanted the whole family to come together to remember the two women who, each in their own way, had suffered because of secrets and separations. The mass was held at the small neighborhood church where Grace had grown up. Rose, Michael, Aunt Faith, Megan, Patricia, and their children attended, along with some distant cousins and, to everyone's surprise, Richard. During the ceremony, Rose asked to speak. "I want to say a few words about my mother, Grace Johnson, and my grandmother, Margaret Johnson, two women who made mistakes, but also suffered greatly because of the choices they made. My mother was forced to give me up when she was just a teenager. She carried that pain her whole life. My grandmother made a decision she herself later recognized as wrong. She too carried that guilt her whole life. Today, 48 years later, I can say I forgive them both. I forgive my mother for not fighting harder to keep me. I forgive my grandmother for separating us. And I forgive all of us for taking so long to find each other. Because what matters isn't the time we lost. What matters is the time we still have ahead, and we're going to make the most of it as a family that loves, forgives, and supports one another. Amen." Everyone present wept. Even Richard, who had caused so much pain, was visibly moved. After the Mass, the family gathered at Aunt Faith's house for lunch. It was the first time in decades they were all together. No secrets, no lies, no resentment. During lunch, Rose made an announcement. "I have something to tell you all. I've decided to write a book about our story." "A book?" Michael asked. "Yes. I want to share our family's story so others can learn from our mistakes. I don't want other families to go through what we did." "What will the book be like?" "It will tell everything, from the moment our mother got pregnant to the moment we reunited. It will talk about the pain, but also about forgiveness. It will talk about the secrets, but also about the truth." "Are you sure you want to expose our family like that?" "I am, because our story can help others. It can help other families avoid making the same mistakes." "Will you talk about what I did?" Richard asked, embarrassed. "I will, but I'll also talk about your change, about how a person can redeem themselves when they acknowledge their mistakes." The book was published 2 years later under the title The Photo in the Bible, a story of forgiveness and reconciliation. It became a bestseller and helped many families resolve their own conflicts. Rose used the royalties to expand the support center. Today, the center helps over 100 families a year and has become a national model for supporting teen mothers. Michael left his job at an accounting firm and became the center's administrator. He discovered his true calling was helping people. Aunt Faith, now 85, is still an active volunteer at the center. She says finding Rose was the greatest joy of her later years. Richard continued volunteering and became the coordinator of the social reintegration program. He never spoke about money or inheritance again. His greatest pride is knowing he helped hundreds of families reconcile. Rose's daughters, Megan and Patricia, became ambassadors for the center. They travel across the United States sharing their family's story and encouraging others to search for their lost relatives. Today, 5 years after their reunion, the Johnson family gathers every Sunday at Rose's home in Boston. They have lunch together, share stories, laugh, cry, and live. The old Bible that belonged to Grandmother Margaret sits on a special shelf in the support center. It has become a symbol of faith for all the families who pass through there. Rose often says the Bible teaches that the truth will set you free. In the case of the Johnson family, the truth truly did set them free. It freed Rose from the pain of abandonment. It freed Michael from an incomplete life. It freed Aunt Faith from the guilt she carried. It freed Richard from the greed that controlled him. But the greatest freedom was the freedom of love. After 48 years apart, the Johnson family finally learned that love is stronger than any secret, stronger than any mistake, stronger than any pain. The photo Rose kept in the Bible wasn't just a memory, it was a promise that one day, no matter how much time passed, love would find a way to bring the family back together. And it did. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of Rose and Michael's story. Do you think they made the right decisions? What lessons can we take from this story for our own lives? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other moving stories. Thank you so much for being here.